What happens when a council chairman's son decides that his father's name on the courthouse budget makes him untouchable and assaults a bailiff in the hallway of that very building? This young man walked into my courtroom believing that 22 years of his father's institutional investment would function as a ceiling over these proceedings, that two attorneys, the right name, and a carefully worded plea would reframe what two security cameras had recorded in high definition in a public hallway 60 FT from the clerk's office where it all began. He stood in front of me looking like a man attending a scheduling inconvenience. And he said, with that court officer sitting 3 rows away with his wrist in a brace, that calling what he did an assault was a significant mischaracterization of what actually occurred. The courtroom went very still, but what nobody in that room knew, what even Derek Calloway didn't know, was that Council Chairman Raymond Calloway was sitting in the 5th row in a plain dark suit, no aide at his elbow, no staff, no apparatus, watching his son use his name as a weapon in the building his name had helped fund for 22 years. And the decision he was about to make is something this courthouse has not witnessed in 33 years on this bench. It was a gray Wednesday morning, and the file that landed on my desk at 8:40 a.m. told me what kind of morning it was going to be before I finished the first paragraph. I opened it, read the defendant's name, and read the position beneath it. I set down my coffee and did not pick it up again. The victim was Leon Reyes, 54 years old, court officer in this building for 26 years, the first in his family to work in public service. A fact he carried with the quiet pride of someone who understood what institutions are supposed to be for. He is a grandfather. He coaches youth baseball on Saturday mornings when the docket allows. In 26 years, he has never filed a complaint against a member of the public, not once. The defendant was Derek Calloway, 31 years old, son of Council Chairman Raymond Calloway, who has chaired the committee that oversees courthouse budgeting, office certifications, and judicial administrative panel appointments for 22 consecutive years, the man whose name is on the infrastructure that keeps this building running. 2 weeks before the incident, Derek had been cited for parking in a reserved accessible space outside the county services building. He appeared at the clerk's office to contest it in person, not because the fine was significant, but because being told no was something that, in his experience, simply did not apply to him. The clerk processed the ticket as valid, the fine stood. Derek demanded to speak with the supervisor. The supervisor confirmed the clerk's decision. Derek turned and walked into the hallway. Leon was standing near the water fountain, having just finished directing a family to the correct courtroom on the 2nd floor. Derek approached him and told him the clerk's office was incompetent, that the building ran like a broken machine, and that someone needed to explain why he was being treated like an ordinary person when his father had spent 22 years making sure this building had the resources to function at all. Leon told him professionally and without any provocation that the written appeals process was available at the window down the hall. Derek shoved him into the wall with both hands. Leon's shoulder struck the corner of a mounted fire extinguisher bracket. He went down knee first, then wrist. He spent the afternoon in the emergency room. He returned to limited duty 6 days later with his wrist in a brace. 2 security cameras had been recording from the moment Derek entered the hallway. The footage was clear, continuous, and completely unambiguous. The security footage reached the county news desk that evening. By the following morning, 3 regional outlets had it. By noon, the County Attorneys Association had released a statement. By the end of the day, every court officer in this building had signed a collective statement of support for Leon Reyes. Not a petition, not a letter drafted by a union representative, but a statement, every name in sequence on a single page. The council chairman's office issued its response in 24 hours. A single, carefully constructed paragraph that expressed regret, expressed confidence that appropriate processes would be followed, and named Derek. It did not contain the words Leon Reyes. It did not apologize to the man whose wrist was in a brace. The district attorney filed charges within 48 hours: assault on a public officer, criminal harassment, and intimidation of a court officer. The speed of that filing told you exactly how much pressure the office understood it was operating under. By the morning of trial, the courthouse gallery had filled in a way I had not seen assembled for a single proceeding in 33 years on this bench. Clerks, administrators, record staff, security officers, the people who work in this building, who walk its hallways, who know Leon Reyes by name and by the particular quiet competence with which he has moved through this institution for more than half his working life. They came without being organized. They came because the thing that happened in the hallway 6 days ago had happened to one of them. Leon was in the gallery in his court officer uniform, wrist in its brace, sitting with the particular stillness of someone who has spent 26 years providing order for other people's worst moments and was now, for the first time, the reason a room had filled. Then the doors opened. Derek Calloway walked in at 9:10 a.m. In a tailored navy suit and a white shirt with no tie, the careful, calibrated choice of someone who has been told to appear serious without appearing contrite. His expression was one of controlled inconvenience, the performance of a man who has agreed to participate in a process he considers a formality arranged by people whose authority he does not actually recognize. Behind him, Marcia Flynn, a former city attorney who now charges 3 times what the city paid her to defend people from it, and a junior associate walking a half step behind with a look of someone who has been briefed extensively and is hoping the briefing is enough. Derek did not look at Leon Reyes when he passed the gallery. He did not slow, did not nod, did not acknowledge by any gesture or expression that the man sitting 3 rows from the aisle in full uniform, wrist in a brace, was the man he had put on the tile floor of this building 6 days ago. He walked past Leon Reyes the way you walk past a piece of institutional furniture you pass every day without registering. My glasses were off before he reached the defense table. The case was called. The charges were read. I asked Derek Calloway how he wished to plead. Flynn was on her feet before the question finished. Context, mitigating circumstances, a moment of stress following a frustrating administrative interaction, her client's otherwise impeccable record in the community. I raised one hand. I had asked the defendant. Derek looked at me with the composed, unhurried confidence of someone who has been told he has the best representation available and has concluded that this means the outcome has already been managed, not guilty. What happened was a misunderstanding. I was upset and I overreacted, but calling it an assault is a significant mischaracterization of what actually occurred. I set my pen down with deliberate care. The courtroom went the specific silence of a room that has just been told in plain language that a name should function as a modifier to what someone did. I told Derek that a 26-year court officer with an unblemished record had spent an afternoon in the emergency room and returned to limited duty with his wrist in a brace. Would he like to clarify what part of that he considered a mischaracterization? He did not clarify. He said that Leon could have stepped back, that the hallway was narrow, that the situation had escalated in a way that neither of them had intended. And then he said the sentence I will carry from that morning for the rest of my time on this bench. I think if people understood the pressure my father operates under and the resources he's committed to this institution, they'd understand that this is not the kind of matter that reflects who I am or who my family is. The gallery made no sound at all. Not the compressed silence of people holding back a reaction, the specific silence of a room that has just heard something it already suspected, confirmed in plain language by the person who is supposed to be answering for what he did. I descended from the bench. I walked to the monitor at the side of the room. I pulled up the security camera footage and played it without a word. The hallway, Leon at the water fountain having just finished giving directions to a family. You can see them in the frame moving toward the stairwell. Derek entering the hallway with purpose. The exchange, Leon's professional redirect, his hand gesturing toward the appeals window. The shove, 2 hands full force, the sound of shoulder on bracket. Leon going down, his wrist bending under him, Derek walking away without looking back. I let it play to the end. Then I turned to face Derek Calloway. That man has worked in this building for 26 years. He was giving someone directions when you approached him. He gave you a professional, courteous response, and you drove him into a fire extinguisher bracket. That is not a misunderstanding. That is assault on a public officer, documented on 2 cameras in a public hallway in your own courthouse. Flynn stepped in then, smooth, practiced, exactly the way experienced attorneys step in when a client has said too much and the footage has already been played. She introduced context, the stress of the administrative dispute, the particular compounding pressures of being a public figure's family member, the disproportionate media coverage, and then with the seamless transition of someone who had been building toward it from the first sentence, she mentioned the council chairman, not as a threat. She was far too experienced for that. As context, a reminder woven into language about community investment and institutional partnership that Raymond Calloway had spent 22 years ensuring this building had the resources to function, that the courtroom we were sitting in existed in its current form in part because of the committee he chaired. The gallery heard it the way people hear a suspicion confirmed, that familiar, dispiriting recognition that this is the moment where the name does what names like that do in rooms like this one. Derek straightened slightly. Something in his posture that had been held in careful tension all morning settled into something that looked like relief. I let Flynn finish every sentence. Then I folded my hands on the bench, looked past her to the gallery, and asked the question I had been waiting to ask since the moment the file landed on my desk. Is Council Chairman Calloway present in this courtroom today? Derek's posture shifted, barely, but visibly. Flynn's pivot stopped mid-breath. The junior associate seated behind the defense table glanced involuntarily toward the back of the room before she could stop herself. Derek said his father may have come to show his support. Let's confirm that. I looked toward the gallery and said, Calloway, if you're present, I'd ask you to identify yourself. A stillness settled over the room. Not the held silence of people waiting for something they expected, but the particular stillness of a room that has just asked a question it is not certain will be answered. Then from the fifth row, a man stood. Raymond Calloway is 61 years old. He had no aide beside him, no staff member, no press officer, no institutional apparatus of any kind. He was wearing a plain dark suit and carrying the face of a man who has spent the last 6 days in the company of something he cannot manage his way out of, and who has arrived this morning at the place where he is going to stop trying. He stood with his hands at his sides and looked not at me, not at the cameras, but at his son. Derek turned in his chair. He saw his father standing in the fifth row without anything around him, and something that had been managed all morning, the composed indifference, the controlled inconvenience, the posture of a man attending a formality, came unmanned, not dramatically, just a sudden visible fragility, as if something structural had given way behind his face. Raymond Calloway walked to the front of the courtroom without being directed. He stood before my bench. He did not have prepared remarks. He did not have the careful, calibrated language that 22 years of institutional navigation had made second nature to him. He had only what he had decided, and he was going to say it. He said that what his son did to Leon Reyes was wrong, without qualification and without the softening language that 22 years of public life had made available to him. He said there was no version of the security camera footage that required interpretation, no administrative frustration or family pressure that explained what was visible in that recording, and no consideration of his committee's authority that this court should permit to modify what was plainly there. Then he turned to face Leon Reyes in the gallery. He said that Leon Reyes had served the people of this county with dignity and without complaint for 26 years. He said that the words his son had used in that hallway, the words about who signs the paychecks, were words he was ashamed to have placed into Derek's vocabulary by the example he had set. Then he faced the bench. Your Honor, I did not come here to intervene. I came here to make clear on the record in this room that my position on this council will not be used directly or through any implication to shape the outcome of this proceeding. My son will face what this court decides. That is not a request for leniency. That is a statement of what I believe this institution requires of anyone who sits on the committee that oversees it. The courtroom did not react loudly. It did something quieter and more permanent. It acknowledged. The courthouse staff in the gallery sat very still. Leon Reyes, in his uniform, closed his eyes for a brief moment and then opened them. Derek Calloway was looking at his father with the expression of someone watching the architecture of their assumptions dismantle in real time, piece by piece, in a room full of witnesses. I put my glasses back on. I told Derek Calloway that I had presided in this building for 33 years and had watched institutional adjacency walk through those doors in every configuration it takes. Family names, committee budgets, donor records, appointment histories. In every case, without exception, the facts have been what the facts were. His facts were recorded on 2 security cameras in high definition in a public hallway, 60 FT from the clerk's office. Guilty on all counts: assault on a public officer, criminal harassment, intimidation of a court officer. The sentence: 90 days in the county correctional facility, 400 hours of community service assigned specifically to courthouse accessibility and public services programs, the programs that exist to serve the people Derek had decided should wait while he resolved his administrative grievance, to be completed under the direct supervision of this court's community services coordinator. 18 months of formal probation. Mandatory completion of a court-ordered anger management and accountability program. A formal written apology to Leon Reyes, composed without attorney assistance and without legal review, to be read aloud in this courtroom before remand. And a public accountability statement, unscripted, unedited, not submitted through counsel, to be filed with the county's public record and distributed to every court officer association in this state. Flynn did not move. There was nothing procedurally useful left for her to do. From the 5th row, Raymond Calloway spoke quietly. One condition of his own. Derek's access to the family's financial accounts was suspended for the duration of the probationary period. He would arrange his own housing, he would manage his own expenses, he would complete his service without financial insulation. The position I hold in this city was given to me by the people of this county. My son used it as a personal instrument. He will learn without the benefit of it what it actually means to operate without one. Derek closed his eyes. For the first time since he had walked through those doors, his face showed his age rather than his performance of it. The officers moved to remand him. Derek was not looking at Flynn. He was looking at his father, who had already risen from the 5th row and was walking through the quiet courtroom toward him. Not quickly, not with ceremony, with the measured pace of a man who has decided something and is walking toward the consequence of having decided it. They met in the open space between the gallery and the defense table. No attorneys intervened. No cameras were positioned close enough to make this anything other than what it was. Raymond Calloway put one hand on his son's shoulder and looked at him the way parents look at their children when they are simultaneously heartbroken and completely certain they are doing the right thing. I should have made you earn every door I ever opened for you. I didn't. That's on me. This is on you. Those are 2 different things, and it matters that you understand the difference. Get through this. Come out someone who knows the difference. Derek's voice, when it came, was stripped of everything the morning's performance had put in it. I'm sorry, Dad. I know. Prove it. The officers were patient. When they stepped apart, Derek straightened, nodded once, and walked with them without being asked twice. Raymond Calloway stood and watched his son go. Then Leon Reyes rose from his seat. Wrist in its brace, 26 years of service in his posture, he crossed the floor of the courthouse he has worked in for more than half his adult life and extended his good hand. The council chairman took it. Around them, the courthouse staff in the gallery rose to their feet, 1 row at a time. Nobody said anything. The room had already said everything that needed to be said. Derek Calloway completed the 90 days. He completed the 400 hours without the financial infrastructure that had defined every other aspect of his adult life. Arranging his own transportation, managing his own schedule, showing up to each assignment without the expectation that someone would have smoothed the logistics in advance. The courthouse accessibility coordinator described him at the 6-month review as someone who arrived expecting a transaction and left understanding that the work was the point. Leon Reyes returned to full duty 3 weeks after the trial. He continued without public statement, without complaint, and without having asked this court for anything beyond what the proceedings required. The public accountability statement was read at 2 court officer training seminars in the following year. Derek spoke at one of them in person without notes, without making it comfortable, without leaving out the part where he invoked his father's name as a trick to a man who had just helped a family find a courtroom. Afterward, in the hallway where the security footage was recorded, Derek stopped in front of Leon Reyes. They shook hands. Both men described the conversation with the same word, enough. Raymond Callaway filed his recusal from all courthouse operations votes at the subsequent budget cycle. It entered the public record with a written statement explaining why. He did not respond to the commendations that followed because he did not consider it something that warranted a response. I keep in the drawer where I keep the things that remind me what 33 years of this work is for. One document, Leon Reyes's written testimony, submitted 6 days after the assault, in which he describes the incident in precise, professional, unembellished language and ends with the following sentence, "I have always believed that what happens inside it matters. I still believe that." The story is not about a parking ticket. It is about what happens when an institution is used as a personal instrument by someone who believes he inherited the right to use it, and what it looks like when the man who actually holds that authority stands up in the fifth row without his apparatus and refuses to be that instrument. For Leon Reyes, for the 26 years, for the building, share this, subscribe. Justice still has a pulse.